Hello, welcome to Art Recess. Today we're going to be making collage quilts. My name is Andrea and let's have fun. So today we're going to be talking about quilts. Quilts are what you might call blankets. There's patchwork sometimes on the top and they're warm and cozy and a lot of us can enjoy them at home. Quilts are based on grids, and we'll talk about what a grid is and how we can draw that out. We're going to be drawing, we're going to be looking at magazine images, we're going to be looking at colors and textures and how we can make our collage quilts kind of a cohesive and something that we really like looking at, and we get to experiment with how we can put those things together. So the things you'll need are a pencil and a pen. We'll need, if you want, you can use some markers to test out some of the colors that your design. You need scissors and a glue stick, and then you'll need some old magazines where you can cut up and not worry about putting them back together and being able to read them again. We're going to be looking for two different kinds of images. One is a background image, and that's going to be a full page. And then we're going to be looking for our paper fabrics. And we're going to chop those up and glue them onto our background to make our quilt. So let's look at our background first. Our background kind of sets the tone or the stage for what our piece is going to look like. I have some examples here. This one feels very energetic, or there's people at a stadium or an arena and they're kind of waiting in anticipation for something to happen. I'm looking at some of the colors that I see in here. I see some red here. In this area, there's people and they're all different, wearing all different colors of shirts, but this area is very kind of almost purple. There's probably a light that's shining on them that makes them look purple. What else can I see in this image? I see this wooden floor, and it's got some kind of stripes in them because of the hardwood. And those are kind of the main colors that I see in this background image. This image has a very different feeling to it. It's calm, it's serene. There's nature in here. I see this is probably like a forest of some sort, but then there's a pristine garden. Somebody has made this landscape in the front and taken careful care of these shrubs and these plants here, and then made this rock wall here, and this is a bench here. Some of the colors I see here, of course, the green of the grass, and then the green of the trees. But if I look a little bit more closely, I see colors that are, there's these pinks in these leaves here. Maybe it's the beginning of fall and they're starting to change color. The glow of the sunlight has these bright greens and yellows and also the pinks that show through. So this image feels calm, and I can feel that it's kind of a time of day that's maybe just the beginning of a sunset. Maybe the sun is starting to go down. All right, back to backgrounds. Here's another background that shows some natural elements, but they're very sculpted. They're placed in very specific places. I like the colors in this. They are very pretty, and I'm really drawn to the variations of red and pink and some oranges and peaches. It's a very beautiful image that I might draw inspiration from. Here's another image that I like because it's a mix of nature, the natural world in winter, and people enjoying it through sport. So I love that there's this hockey player. She's moving fast. I can see the ice flying here. Some of the colors that I see in this are the grays and blues of the sky. I see some maybe navy or black on the jersey here, some red in the opposing team's jersey, some orange. There's a really cool calmness, but also energy to this image. So here's a quilt that I made inspired by this particular image. I think it could look really cool on here. I've drawn in some of the colors that I mentioned. So here's the yellow, and here's some red. And then I've chosen a blue that's quite similar to his jersey here, and the lights that are here. Again, text can be very textural. It can be feel like there's something there, gives it a visual texture. This looks yummy. But if you look at these pasta noodles, that also gives a texture, and this salad also has a leafy texture. All right, so let's get to making our quilts. Today I'm going to use this background. I decided I really like this Maud Lewis image from her painted house. And so I like it because there's a texture here that's wooden, and then there's some bright colors here that I think I can capitalize on. So let me look for some fabrics to go for my quilt on this background. There's some orange here that I've pulled in. And this flower fabric here kind of speaks to this bird here. It's dark, but it's a little bit different and has this nice repeat pattern to it. These flowers might add some cool colors. So we just need a few sheets of white plain copy paper, and we're going to be drawing a grid on here. It's going to be square-ish. Quilts are wobbly, they're not totally straight. When we use them especially, they crumple up on our couch. And so we're not going to worry about having a perfectly straight lines. So I'm going to divide this into quarters. So I'm going to look at this line here and divide it in half. And then just kind of aim downwards. Same this way, divide it in half again. I'm going to continue to divide this into 16 squares like this. A really common element in quilt blocks is the half square triangle. So that just means that I'm dividing each of these squares in half. This was the basis for my quilt that looks like this. It's just a series of half square triangles with rows of different colors. Another common unit or block is a quarter square triangle, where I divide a square into 4 so that when I divide this square, it has 4 triangles and each of them takes up a quarter of the space. So I've drawn my grid here in pencil this time around, and so I'm going to draw in a sawtooth star, which has 4 plain squares in each corner. It also has 1 big square in the middle, made up of 4 smaller squares. And then has the star points on the side like this. This one's going to be my base, and these ones are going to be my templates. At this point, I'm going to switch to my pencil, and I'm going to label each of these, and I'm going to number them so I can use these pieces and cut them up and use the pieces to trace my fabric. I'm going to label these rows row A, row B, row C, and row D. I'm going to call this block A1. This is A2, A3, A4, A5, and A6. Now it's time to plan our colors. So I'm going to want the center of my star to be, I think I'm going to choose something like that. I think I'm going to use red. So I'm just going to, you can color the full thing in, or you can I'm just going to mark it here. So I know this one's red. And then I want the points of my star to be orange, I think. So in some of my other tests, I colored them all in so that I know what it kind of looks like in the end. So I'm going to make my first I'm going to put my red square down first. So here's what we're going to do for each shape. We're going to trace it and then cut it out and glue it onto our base. You don't have to be too precise about the way you trace it. So the reason why we're tracing all these different triangles is that because our quilt is wobbly, each triangle is just a little bit different. Now that I'm looking at this quilt block, I'm really liking these triangles being white, so I'm going to use white instead of my planned yellow. As artists, we always make decisions as we go along sometimes, and they don't always go as planned. All right, here's our collage quilt. I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to see where I like to place it on this background. All right. I think I like these birds being kind of flying towards or around it like it's their house. I'm going to glue it down there. So here's our collage quilt. It's finished, and I like the colors that I've brought in from the background here. It's a wobbly looking star, and that's the way that fabric looks sometimes. It's fluid, it moves around a lot, and so this quilt block is not a perfect grid, but it has the elements of how a quilt would actually be in your room or in your house, or the way it would blow around in the wind if it was outside as a picnic blanket. So this is my finished collage quilt. The quilt block itself is not a perfect square. It doesn't have perfect square elements in it. It wobbles and it moves kind of like how a quilt would be in real life. A quilt, in your room isn't going to be always perfectly flat and perfectly gridded. So here's your collage quilt. Your quilt can be as simple as a patchwork, a simple square patchwork like this, or it can be a little bit more complicated like the star that we made today. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy making your own collage quilt at home.